We're back here in the final segment of our program, speaking with Ambassador Guzman of the Republic of Cuba. And Ambassador, one of the things I want to talk to you about before we talk about the CARICOM summit, crime. We have a crime problem in most countries, the phenomenon of crime in most countries in the region. And I'm told that you do not have too much of a crime problem in Cuba. Why?
We have, you know, we have a low rate of crime.
A low rate of crime.
Yes, and I think that is why, because we have an integral policy, you know, because sometimes people say, okay, yes, if you commit a crime in Cuba, you go to jail. Yes, it is true. And for example, with the drugs, we have a very, very severe penalties for those that traffic drugs in Cuba, because we don't want drugs in the street.
What is that penalty?
You know, it could be 12 years, 15 years, it depends, but it's...
as well as capital punishment?
No.
You don't go as high as capital punishment?
No.
Wasn't there a Cuban official who was executed some time ago?
We have the capital punishment in our law.
For drug trafficking?
No, not for drug trafficking. No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, sure, yes. They made treason. You know, that was something different.
Oh, you said it was treason?
Treason, yes, they made treason. So that was something different, you know. They used also to have, and they made some kind of those drugs trafficking. But at the end of the day, they were tried by treason, not by the drug trafficking. But
drug trafficking was involved?
Yes, it was involved, you know. And that's why we have those kind of penalties, you know. But usually those persons that are in Cuba and they are apprehended because they are trafficking drugs, they get penalties like 10, 12, 15 years, it depends. But the message is very clear. We don't want drugs in the street in Cuba, you know. But at the same time, we have a policy that educate our people, you know. So we work very hard with the young people, you know, in order to give them alternative. In order they said, okay, I have this option, trafficking with drugs, but I have also this option to go and work with this, or to go and participate as part of the cultural or theater team, or go and make part of the sports team. So at the end of the day, the young people in Cuba, they have options, you know. They can say, okay, I don't need to do this to get money. I can get money through an alternative way.
Mr. Ambassador, I have been following a particular case where an American has been jailed for 15 years in Cuba for developing a website to get Cubans to use the internet. Why are Cubans precluded, or why is there a policy to disallow young Cubans from using the World Wide Web?
This is part of the media campaign against Cuba. Let me be clear. For example, first of all, this community, that this person, it was a Jewish community, you know, that this guy, Mr. Alan Gross, supposed to go there and allow them to get access to internet, they recognize that they were not needed this. This is first point. But second one is that it is ironically, if you want to help Cuban people to get a connection to internet, I mean the US government, why you don't allow Cuban to connect to the fiber optic cable that pass very near to Cuba? In the case of Cuba, because the embargo, we cannot connect with this fiber optic cable that pass around Cuba to the US.
So it's a retaliation by Cuba, that is what it is.
Yes, it is. You know, so we have, in Cuba, the problem with the connection and with the internet is not that we don't allow people to get internet. The problem with us is the problem with the connection. We have to take the connection from the satellite. So it is very expensive for us to have connections in Cuba. We have the cables all over around the Cuba, and we cannot connect it because those cables, due to the embargo. So why, if you want to help us, please lift the embargo and allow Cuban people to connect to this cable. Why you have to send someone without inform our government and try to do something like this? At the end of the day, he was not trying to get those people to connect to internet. He was trying to subvert our internal order. You know, that's what he was doing there.
To subvert the internal
order in Cuba, yes. You know, so
that is a broad charge.
Yes, and the problem is that they talk about this person, but they don't talk about the 5 Cuban persons that are in jail in Cuba, in the U.S. This person, Mr. Alan Gross, he has been in jail for the last 5 years. Those Cuban 5, they have been in jail in the U.S. for the last 16 years. And the only crime that they commit was that they were working inside those group of Cuban Americans in Miami, trying to avoid that those groups prepare attacks against Cuba.
And the charge was spying, eh?
The charge was 2 jail, 2 sentences.
It was espionage.
Espionage. But they were not espionage the U.S. government. They were working with inside those American Cuban groups in Miami.
Okay.
You know?
Before we run out of time, let's talk about the 5th CARICOM, Cuba CARICOM summit. What is expected to be achieved? Our Prime Minister is attending. What do you expect to come out of this summit?
We expect us come out of this summit an increase and strength of the cooperation between Cuba and the CARICOM countries. You know, during the last 4 years, we have been working with CARICOMs in order to strengthen the cooperation. We have different programs in the education field, in the cultural field, in the sports field, medicine, in different CARICOM countries. You know. So we have bilateral programs, and at the same time we have multilateral programs among the CARICOM members. So this summit in Havana will be a moment to say, okay, to pass a review and say, okay, we have achieved this, now we have to move forward and try to achieve this, this, and this. So we will present different projects of cooperation to CARICOM countries, and we will try to work in the next 3 years in order to implement those programs in areas such as like environment. That is very important for us because the climate change is a problem and a challenge for all of the Caribbean countries, including Cuba. We will work also in the area of health because Ebola is a risk not only for Cuba or the Bahamas, it's a risk for all over the world and all the Caribbean countries. We will work also in the cultural field. We will work also in the sports. Just a few days ago, we had the Central American and Caribbean Games, and I think that we saw there that we need to increase the cooperation between our countries because it's a big difference between the results that obtains the Bahamas, for example, and the result that all other countries from the CARICOM obtain. So I think that the idea is that for a small countries like us, the only way that we have to move forward and to get better conditions for our people is if we work together, you know, and we help one each other, because no one will come to help us, so we have to do it by ourselves.
But isn't the lifting of the embargo central and extremely pivotal in the improvement of relations between Cuba and CARICOM countries? Isn't that very important?
No, I don't think so. If
you would have better relations with the Bahamas and other countries in the Caribbean,
of course,
if this embargo
was lifted. But the problem is that in Cuba, we consider that we cannot say, okay, we have to wait that they decide to lift the embargo to move forward with the rest of the world, because if not, it is something that don't depends from us. So the embargo is there. Okay, maybe the best way to do something is between this and this, a direct line. But in this place, we have the embargo. So we have to make a round, and at the end of the day, we will arrive in the same point that we want, you know. Maybe more expensive, maybe more difficulty, but at the end of the day, the results will be what we want.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you so very much.
My pleasure.
I appreciate you being here today.
My pleasure.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you very much for watching and listening to our program as Cuba celebrates the 40th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the Bahamas and Cuba. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.